Hello, and welcome to Agents of Nonprofit. My name is Alexander Lapa, and I'm here to speak with everyday superheroes helping nonprofits. Joining me today is Camesha Cox from the Reading Partnership, which is an actual nonprofit. So, Camesha, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's great to be in conversation with you today.
So, for people hearing you for the very first time, could you explain a bit about what you do or what led you maybe to this moment before you had started the Reading Partnership?
Yeah, well, the Reading Partnership is a registered Canadian charity with a mission to build community and cultivate a love of reading for children and families through inclusive, interactive, and evidence informed literacy programming. This is work that is urgent because over 1 million Canadian children do not have the literacy skills needed for academic and economic success. And we know that Black and racialized and low income kids are overrepresented in those who are struggling. So, our approach to addressing literacy issues or challenges is unique. We value local families, educators, and community workers as expert collaborators. Our tools and programs are shaped by the people who use them, and it's why what we do works. So, we started off in 2012 with 12 families with our very first program and funded by a small one-time grant through United Way. And today we serve over 2,500 people each year with a team of 10 staff and an operating budget of $1.8 million. So that's in a very big nutshell, kind of who we are, what we do. But how I came to this work was as an educator. I'm an educator. I started my teaching career in the UK, working with high school students, reading at primary levels. And my work in the UK really put me on this path to ensuring that kids learn and love to read.
So you started in the UK because now you're in Canada. Were you born in Canada and then went to the UK, or was from the UK and came to Canada? I'm just curious to know a little more about your what I call your superhero origin story. So everything that happened up until the Reading Partnership.
Yeah, born and raised in Toronto, in Scarborough. My parents are Jamaicans that migrated here in the 70s. But yeah, no, my entire education journey was pretty much in Canada. And so I graduated from Teachers College. And at the time of graduating, there were no jobs in Ontario for teachers. It was a tough time for teachers. And there were a lot of agencies recruiting teachers to the UK. And so I went to London. I graduated and decided I would take off and leave. And I started supply teaching, and that had me going to schools across London. And after a month of supply teaching and experiencing different schools, I landed at a school called Bridge Academy in Hackney. And Hackney is a inner city community, low income families, highly racialized, very marginalized community. And in the heart of this community was this school, beautiful, beautiful school that had the support of had corporate sponsors. So it was like a corporate slash or like a private public partnership that went into building that school. And yeah, my first day, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This just the environment for kids coming from, the kinds of homes that I knew that they were coming from, right? The space that they had in this school, the access to the supports that they needed, and amazing music programs, amazing theater program, amazing math and science programs, and a real issue with literacy. A number of kids in the school, and it was a high school, so grade 7, 8, and 9, not reading at grade level. Some of them reading at primary levels. Some of them not reading at all. And I was brought in for as a supply teacher for 1 week, and then after that week, one of the VPs approached me and said, "Hey, we want you to stay. We want you to be our literacy specialist." And at that time, I definitely was not a literacy specialist. I was not a specialist. I just graduated from teachers college, but I said yes to the opportunity, and I spent the year, you know, first part of the year trying to develop a literacy program, and then going off and getting some training and rolling out a literacy intervention program for over 100 kids in that school, training education assistants on the program and delivering it and seeing kids transform before my eyes. Right, I can still remember Tiffany, a young girl in grade 7 who did not know how to read at all, and sound blended her first word with me. And I remember, after weeks of doing different activities to build their sound knowledge, right? Lessons on phonics and she was attempting to sound blend. I always say it was the word cat because that's what I remember. But who knows? It could have been another simple word, right? And her sound blending that word and then looking up at me, reading the word, but with that question mark at the end, like cat, and then me saying yes. And then automatically her body posture changed, right? It's like you could see confidence on her body now and in her approach to the next word and the next word and the next word. And so it was like, those magic moments, like that one with Tiffany, that really hooked me to wanting to be a part of a child's, journey to learning to read, recognizing that, I didn't want to wait till grade 7. It was way too late. I wanted to ensure that kids, got the start that they needed. And so, some of my ideas around the Reading Partnership for Parents program that we currently run started in the UK, where I was making those, coming to those conclusions. I wanted to start early. I wanted to engage parents. I wanted to ensure that kids got the start that they needed. I wanted to be a preventative program, not an intervention program. Let's not wait. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story, sharing. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I imagine that after seeing that and being inspired by kids in that UK program, you wanted to bring it back to Toronto, to Canada, right? I'm curious to know what came first. Was it the motivation to say I can do the same thing at home, or was it I see a need here, and because I have the knowledge that I experienced in the UK, I know what to do and how to solve for it?
Yeah, I felt like, I came back from the UK. I started my master's in education right away. And so I kind of parked that idea of developing a program. I left with the idea that I wanted to develop a program that taught kids or taught parents and caregivers how to teach their kids to read. But I kind of tucked it away, got through my master's program, started looking for work again, and couldn't find it, couldn't find work. Applied and applied and applied. And a mentor that I had at the time, when I came back from the UK, I told her about the idea. And so when I went to her to complain about the fact that I couldn't find a job, she reminded me of the idea and said, well, what about that program, that you said you wanted to design? United Way is giving out seed funding right now for residents who have, solutions for their what they see as their community's biggest challenges. Why don't you go for that? And I did. And I started to look into the data and discovered that in my community, you know, 49% of kids were not meeting the provincial standards for reading in grade 3. And that in some schools that was as high as 60%. And that Black and Indigenous kids were overrepresented in the number of kids struggling. And, to me, there's no excuse for this kind of like for this rate of failure. But, we have a government that has like an acceptable rate of failure that I don't agree with, especially when it comes to kids learning to read, because we know that 95% of kids can learn to read well, you know, except for in, cases of severe learning disabilities, all kids can learn to read. about 30% learn easily, but the majority, 70% of kids' ability to learn to read depends on access to high quality evidence based instruction. And so, for 49% of kids in my community to not be meeting the provincial standards for reading, and that being, 60% or more in some classrooms, clearly the system had failed these kids. And looking into the stats, I also learned that it was a now more than a 25-year trend, right? In my community and in other communities like it across the city, the country even, right? And so through our work, we're really trying to disrupt that in so many ways.
You mentioned you applied for a grant with United Way, right? You heard about the grant. Is that because
Yeah,
so did you apply for that at the because I recently had a guest on who said normally when you apply for grants, the grantee typically wants the nonprofit to be at least 2 years, maybe even 3 years old before grants are usually awarded. I get the impression, and maybe you can confirm, did you get the grant like early on, and that's what allowed you to start the reading partnership, or was it, how did that work?
yeah, we got the grant early on. So this was a resident action grant. So a little bit different, right? We weren't going at this we didn't have any status as an organization. I was a resident with a solution to what I saw as my community's biggest challenge. And at the time, United Way was very interested in investing in resident led solutions and created this grant called the Resident Action Grant. And so I was able to, as a resident, secure $12,000 to start my to deliver the first reading partnership for parents program to 12 families in the Kingston, Galloway, Orton Park community. So that's how it all started. And now we're a United Way funded agency. We're a full blown charity. And so I love how that kind of story came full circle, right? Once a resident action grant recipient, a volunteer led organization, now full blown charity and a United Way supported organization.
That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's a great starting point for any nonprofit. I'm curious to know, so that can you, if you could talk a bit more about what that first program was and how did it work in conjunction with people still going to school? Because I imagine the kids were still going to school while they were at that program. So how did those work in combination?
Yeah, so the Reading Partnership for Parents program, at the time it was a 12-week program. Now it's a 10-week program focused on supporting parents and caregivers in teaching their kids to read, ensuring that they have access to the tools, the knowledge, the resources to be able to do that and walking them step by step through the process. So it's an interactive play-based program that includes both parent and child, and it still runs as a kind of like an after school program. For that program, we started that our first program partner was BGC East Scarborough, formerly known as Boys and Girls Club East Scarborough. And we ran the program out of their early on child and family center, which has a mandate to serve families and children 0 to 6. So it was like the perfect partner because we were focused on kids ages 4 to 6, kindergarten to grade 1, and their caregivers. So yeah, that's where we started. We started as an after school program in the early on child and family center, going to schools to, of course, recruit parents, standing outside of school, after school, before school, at lunchtime, posting things in bus shelters, standing at the crosswalks, walking with parents, getting them to fill out, applications on the spot. It was a lot of guerrilla marketing tactics that we were using to spread the word about the program and to get families enrolled. We needed 12. And I, like, I wrote into that budget. We just needed 12 parents for that first run. And we wrote into our budget like $2,000. It was a really small marketing and communications budget, $2,000 to develop a program video. So I wanted to ensure that we captured like what happened. That program video continues to serve us today. Like, we haven't updated it because it's so good and it really shows the impact of the program. But we're due for an update now. This is like 13 years, approximately 13 years later, right? So, but yeah, found a person that was interested in supporting community, Philip Sterling, right? Who was running his own, production company, small production company, and he said yes, right? And he continued to say yes year after year for different projects. So we were able to capture the success and the impact of that very first program, and we've never stopped serving families through that program since, even when the pandemic hit and there was a lockdown. We figured out really quickly how to move the program online and delivered our first RPP online program in the summer of 2020. And now that program is delivered in three ways: live in person, live online, and then through RPod, reading program on demand. It's like the asynchronous version of the program that allows families to move through it at their own pace from their own space. It's a completely self-paced digital program. And now we actually train other organizations on how to deliver the program. So that's how we're scaling and expanding that program. Is we train other organizations like the BGC East Scarborough, or right now one of our partners is like the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. So schools, school boards, community organizations, we train them on how to deliver the program and support them as they deliver. So we've come a long way.
In that first program, and I guess the question could apply to almost every program, are these programs more for the parents to help teach the kids and get access to the resources they need to teach their own kids? Or is it the kids and the parents, or like a combination of the two, or is it mostly focused on the kids? I'm curious, I guess maybe based on today's all the programs you offer today, what amount are intended for the parent to help their child versus the child themselves, or a combination of the two?
Yeah, well, the Reading Partnership for Parents program is a combination. Like, we focus on the parent and the caregiver. We're ensuring that they have the skills and tools, but through the program is designed to actually give them the space to practice first with the support, right? So they, whatever it is that we are teaching them during the program, they have an opportunity to implement with our support. Then they go home, and there are many lessons that they do at home, and then they come back and tell us how it went, and then we move on and we introduce a new, the next level content that they get to try and program and then practice at home and then come back to us, and that repeats for 10 weeks. And so there are elements of that program that bring the parent and child together. There are elements that just bring the caregivers together, and kids together separately. So it's a program that engages both the parent and the child. Our other programs like 360 Stories or Kids Read, those 360 Stories it's a book writing program. Kids are getting the 360 experience of bringing a book to life: writing, editing, illustrating, publishing, and then presenting at a public book launch. That one, parents have to agree to have their kids enrolled, but we really focus on schools and identifying schools in marginalized communities and giving kids access to this intensive writing program. So, 3 to 4 schools are engaged. They select 5 to 6 students who are picked up once a week for 4 weeks and bused to a central location. It's usually like a cultural arts center where they program for half the day. And then later on in the week, they have a virtual session, a one-to-one session with a writing coach. And then that repeats for 4 weeks. So they get 8 sessions, 4 in person, 4 virtual. And they get to write the story they want to tell. And then we publish that in an anthology and produce the anthology and produce the book launch where their families are invited, their school communities are invited, and they're honored as published authors, Toronto's newest and youngest authors. It's a really, really fun time for them and creating lasting memories for them.
So that's the second program. You mentioned there's a few more others. I'm curious for all of these programs, are there are the requirements or the yeah, I guess requirements to enter? Like there is an application process. Are there requirements? Is it for only local in the Toronto area, or can people outside apply? Like I'm just curious to know how you've decided to structure all of that.
Yeah. So for every program it's a little bit different. But for like the Reading Partnership for Parents program, that program is delivered across the GTA in Ottawa and in Nova Scotia. And it's in a specific community in Nova Scotia and 3 communities in Ottawa. So it's families in the communities where the programs are running, or where the program delivery partners are situated. They are the ones that are prioritized in the program. Black and Indigenous families are prioritized in the programs. And then in some organizations are actually running our affinity program for Black families. So there's some programs that are exclusive to Black families and others that are open. That's specifically for the Reading Partnership for Parents program. It's the only program that we have that has an affinity program. Kids Read is a GTA focused program. So kids across the GTA and sometimes outside, because sometimes we get like the odd, application from outside of the GTA and Durham, because I don't think GTA is Durham. I don't think GTA includes Durham. So, but kids in Durham are also a part of of who we led into that program. And then 360 Stories is right now focused on Scarborough schools. During the pandemic, we kind of opened it and it was GTA wide because it was online. But now that we've gone to this hybrid model of in person and online, our focus is again in Scarborough. But the goal is to scale. The goal is to scale all of our programs. Right now, we're focused on scaling RPP, the Reading Partnership for Parents program. But Kids Read right now, it's Kids Read TO for Toronto. But really, I see that as Kids Read Canada, right? Where kids across Canada are reading together. It's a really cool program because you'll have kids in Scarborough reading with kids in Mississauga, with kids in East York, with kids in Pickering, all coming together on a Tuesday, afternoon after a full day of school. We serve about 600 kids a year through the Kids Read program. So
I'm not sure if Durham is part of GTA, but I also wanted to make sure it was clear to our listeners who are not from the area that GTA means the Greater Toronto Area.
yes, it
Very
does.
famous acronym in the area. That's awesome. I haven't heard yet anything about Quebec, just because I'm in the province of Quebec, and obviously there's a French component to the province. I imagine all of this so far you've talked about is everything is in English, right? I think you mentioned
Yeah.
at one point you're developing a French program, but it's not quite there yet.
Yes, exactly. So we have been courting a potential program delivery partner in Montreal for the English program, but we are in the process of developing. So we have been courting a potential program delivery partner in Montreal, and that's for the delivery of the English program. But we are in the process of developing a French version of the Reading Partnership for Parents program. But this program is going to be created with the English speaking parent supporting their kids how to read in French, right? So, um, very important program, very needed program. Um, in, yes, within a Quebec context, but also, for parents who have kids in French immersion programs, right? That really are relying solely on the school to provide the French instruction. But we believe that we can create a program that will support English speaking parents in supporting their kids to learn to read in French. It's called, or we're playing with the name Français à la maison. Like, so it's right or something like that. I don't know if I hit it. I have to go and look. We're still developing that. I'm not a French speaker, so we have a consultant working on that program. But I'm very much a part of of the design, and I'm learning quite a bit as I go. So
That's awesome because yeah, once you have the French side of things, you can definitely be and will be or can be at least fully Canadian wide. So that's awesome. I'm curious to know. So overall, have you seen what have you seen or what stories can you share about what it takes for these kids to be successful? Obviously, the the parent or the primary caregiver has to be involved. They have to be motivated. They have to make sure they give feedback to you so that you can make adjustments as needed. Is there anything that you can do above and beyond that, or what have you seen that works that helps either the parent or the caregiver or the kid directly to be able to be as successful as possible?
yeah, so I guess what kind of supports the kids need to be successful in the program. And I think there's the range of supports. We know that kids need support, first of all, to learn and love to read. They need high quality instruction and plenty of practice. They need access to resources that are reflective of themselves, their families, and the communities they live in. They need to connect reading to their interests, their hobbies, their aspirations. Families also need support and our educators too. There's a 2019 study by the Ontario Human Rights Commission that shows that teachers are not being equipped with evidence informed approaches to effectively teach reading. And that's something that in this province and in other parts of Canada, like, we're trying to tackle and shift and change. Um, but that's going to take some time. So we know that that parents and caregivers need to be supported, and our educators need that support as well. Um, there's another study produced in 2022 by the Canadian Children's Literacy Foundation that found that a majority of ECEs report that they don't feel confident to support families with early literacy development at home. So we know that our ECEs in the system also need to be supported, right? And ECEs are they're in kindergarten classrooms, they're delivering our preschool programs, they are um, in our early on child and family centers. So these educators need support too, and our work is focused on that. We're helping parents teach their children to read. We're equipping educators and ECEs and community service providers to deliver fun, effective literacy training to families that they serve. And we are creating communities where kids engage, share, and have fun through reading and creating stories. So everything that we do really involves community, and that comes down to cultivating a sense of a belonging, and that your voice, your ideas, your stories are valued. So
I firmly believe in that expression. It takes a village. It's
yes.
not just about one person or one program. people do require and benefit from a community that helps.
Absolutely. When children succeed, we all do. When children fail, we all do too.
I definitely agree with that one. Yes. And I've heard studies about too about inequality when inequality is balanced, especially, and the study that I was reading was about female to males, but it's I think similar when we can raise the general when we can raise the general level of quality of education, of autonomy, values of not necessarily values, but rights. Like everybody benefits, right? If people are suffering from food inequality, for example, right? We all, in a way, suffer because there could be an Einstein out there that just isn't able to get enough food on the table and not be able to pursue their work. I mean, I think it's the same thing with reading, right? If we can get everybody to at least a high school level of reading, that opens up so many more doors for them that can benefit the rest of society in return. So, um, it's lovely to see you guys fighting the good fight.
Yeah, and it's not an impossible feat. We know that it can be done, right? We know that this is something that is very possible. It's just about how we decide to allocate our resources and what becomes a priority, for us. Then, we can see if there are communities where, 49% of kids, right, are not meeting the provincial standards for reading, then it's clear where our priorities are, and they're not with our kids and ensuring that all kids um, are successful.
I was hoping you could share a success story, a positive impact you've had with a child or a situation that's happened in the recent past.
Oh, there are so many success stories. I think that sometimes that's what, keeps me going. It's the testimonials, the feedback from, parents about feeling really frustrated or feeling like, they're, even having, being hesitant about joining the Reading Partnership for Parents program because, their kids don't like reading with them. Like every time they try to engage, they get the pushback. And then, seeing a parent, seeing that relationship between parent and child, and the bond shift through, the parent really creating these positive experiences around learning with their kids, developing the patience, and then coming out on the other side of that, program, feeling like, wow, I did it. And then they also get to witness the magical moment that their kid learns to read, and they too see the confidence um, on their bodies, and their eyes light up, and it really is priceless, right? And so many of those testimonials coming in from parents about the experience and the sense of community. Like I remember sitting in on one session because now I was very involved in delivering in the beginning. Now I'm not at all. But sometimes I'll pop in and sit in on sessions, and I remember one parent talking about not having um, any friends, like just, lone parent home, really focused on doing whatever she needs to do for her son, and not really feeling like she had a community. And then, coming to the program, and then feeling like she's now a part of a community and organizing play dates with some of the other caregivers in the program. Our kids are friends, and they're creating those bonds and those friendships with each other, right? Or, thing that kids read. I remember we got an unsolicited um, testimonial from a family who said that their daughter, must have tried the book club and the first time and never got through the book. It was too challenging for her, and tried it a second time, and just didn't really work for her. She didn't have the confidence because of the last, experience. She wasn't feeling confident. But then the third time, she was very persistent with mom and saying, just try it again, just try it again. And it was the right book and the right story. And she was able to successfully complete a kids read program. And now she is an avid reader, like just on fire for for books, and was also a kid that was in our 360 Stories program. So she went from, reading books that were being mailed to her to then becoming a published author, and just a real shift in her attitude, right? Like these are the things that we want to see. And also, that that story of like the fact that we had a program running that she could try not just once, not twice, but three times. That idea of like this is the importance of having programs that are sustained in communities, right? Because the things might not work the first time, right? Sometimes things happen. A parent wants to be in a program or wants their child to be in a program, and then there's a shift, right? We want to be able, there's a shift in their schedule, or something happens that, has them having to remove themselves from the program. But the fact that they can try again, that they still have access after the fact, if it's important, and speaks to the importance of ensuring that programs that are delivered in communities are sustained in those communities, right? And so I'm proud to say that we've been delivering the Reading Partnership for Parents program in the Kingston, Galloway, Orton Park community since its inception in 2012, right? And we hope that what's over a decade of support for children and families in this community, and now, families in other communities, is something that we'll be able to write and talk about 50 years from now.
It sounds like in that first example, when the parent is able to see and hear and their child read for the first time, and see that confidence starting to build in their body, you can call it like a cat moment or the cat moment.
Right.
Referring back to your first example in the UK when that girl spelled cat. So you can coin that term if you want, the cat moment.
Or the Tiffany moment. Right, because that young girl's name was Tiffany, and I will never forget her. Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said too about the right book. I know even from my own personal experience, there was a moment I used to read a lot, and then I just gave it up for a number of years, and I just had to find the right book to rekindle that friendship and that relationship with reading. And I tried a number of books, and nothing clicked. And then I found one that I did, and then from then I was able to be much more of an avid reader again. So I think part of what you said earlier also makes sense in the sense of making sure that the right book can really trigger the desire to learn, because that for some reason the story would resonate with the reader.
Absolutely.
I'm curious then. So there's a lot of progress since 2012. I'm curious if you could share with our listeners, what do you have planned, if you can share something? What would you like to see? Where would you like to see the program and your programs rather in the next couple of years?
I remember I had one podcast, and then I found out on the day of doing it that it was actually going to be like what do you call it when it's a video? It's like is it a vlog, or I don't know, but a podcast
Yeah,
is actually a video.
live videos are the worst. I've been guests on live videos. Damn, either that's high pressure situations.
So high pressure. It's just like, get me out of here. But um, so we just launched a 3-year strategic plan, um, with the thrust being that we're preparing to expand our community-driven literacy movement. Um, Preparing to expand. So that's recognizing that we're not ready for expansion yet. We've piloted scaling over the last 3 years, right? Because we were just in Scarborough, but in our last plan, we were piloting scale. What does it mean to deliver a program in other parts of the city, in other parts of the country? And through that piloting of scale, we discovered that we need the organizational infrastructure to support scale, that we need technology right, to support that scale. And there are decisions that we need to make around, you know, what it even means to scale. So defining what scaling up means to us, and really putting the plans and the resources in place so that we can bring the reading partnership to new communities across Canada and beyond. And so that's what we're going to be focused on for the next 3 years, defining scale and building our organizational capacity to be able to support, what we do in other parts of the country. So right now, if we're, serving 2,500 um, people each year through our various programs, what does it mean to serve 25,000, right? What kind of organization do we need to be to support that kind of scale? Who needs to be a part of our organization? Um, who do our partners need to be? It's really about figuring that out, and then building the things, and then building ourselves out to be able to support that scale, with also understanding that we need to be able to sustain the scale. We don't want to just grow for growing's sake, and pop up, in other places, and not be able to actually create um, lasting roots, right? So those are all things that we're considering, and building community is a big part of what we do. And so in a lot of ways, we're thinking about how do we continue to build community locally, and we're launching a community festival actually this fall, October 5th, at Scarborough Town Center. It's going to be our first large scale event since the pandemic, where we are bringing, you know, community together in the heart of Scarborough Town Center. To me is the is really the heart, right? And so we're bringing families and partners together for a full day of programming, building that community, and that's a festival that we want to see grow, right? There's no festival like it in Scarborough. And so I'm saying that it's going to be the largest literacy festival outside of the downtown core. Really, what I want to say, it's going to be the largest literacy festival in Canada at some point, but
You'll get there. Don't worry, you'll get there for sure. Camesha, this has been great. I was hoping you could share with people your website, any other way to get in touch with you, any other way that people can help and contribute or donate to your organization. All the ways to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So our website is readingpartnership.com. You can follow us on all social media platforms, at TRP now. And for those that want to donate, readingpartnership.com/donate. We are going to have a matching campaign coming up in the fall, launching November 13th and running till the end of the year. And so that's always, I mean, give now, but give then too.
Awesome. Camesha, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for creating this opportunity for folks like me to share, and for creating the time today to chat.
It's my pleasure. All right, that's it for today. I'm Alexander Lapa, and I hope you join me again in the next Agents of Nonprofit.